Commander Vornak stood at the helm of the Devastator, his flagship that stretched nearly 3 miles from bow to stern. He clicked his mandibles together in what his species considered a smirk as he observed the blue-green planet rotating slowly on the main view screen. His second set of arms crossed behind his back, while his primary pair manipulated the holographic controls. "Report," he barked, voice echoing across the command bridge. Navigation Officer Taryn swiveled in her chair, her bioluminescent spots glowing with excitement. "Third planet of this unremarkable solar system, Commander. Preliminary scans show vast deposits of critical minerals and rare Earth elements. Primitive civilization detected, primarily concentrated in urban clusters. Technology level, pre-space flight." Vornak let out what might have been a laugh, if it didn't sound like rocks in a garbage disposal. "Show me their most advanced weapons." The view screen flickered, displaying various Earth military vehicles and installations. Vornak's facial tentacles writhed in amusement. "Nuclear weapons? How quaint. They're still splitting atoms while we're splitting dimensions." So Communications Officer Lyra interjected, her crystalline voice resonating through the bridge. "According to first contact protocols, we should establish peaceful silence." Vornak's secondary arms unfolded to slam against his command console. "Look at this pathetic world. Half their land mass dedicated to primitive agriculture. They're practically begging to be conquered. We're not here to make friends. We're here to take what we need." The bridge crew exchanged nervous glances. They'd all heard stories about Earth, whispered warnings from other space-faring races, but surely those were just stories. How dangerous could a species be when they spent their time pushing plants around in dirt? Vornak activated the fleet-wide communication channel. "This is your commander speaking. Deploy in standard conquest formation. Target their largest military installation first. I want this operation wrapped up before dinner. I hear their sun produces excellent radiation for a post-victory sunbath." The massive invasion fleet emerged from dimensional space, 10,000 ships strong, their hulls gleaming with energy shields capable of shrugging off nuclear strikes. Vornak watched with satisfaction as his ships moved into position, their weapon systems humming to life. So Science Officer Nirix spoke up, her tentacles twitching nervously. "I'm detecting some unusual energy readings from their agricultural regions. Perhaps we should investigate before. More primitive technology, no doubt." Vornak waved all 4 arms dismissively, probably trying to grow their plants faster with radiation. How primitive can you get? Now, where should we start our invasion? He studied the tactical display, pausing on a region labeled Kansas. "That area seems particularly defenseless," he mused aloud. "Just endless fields of vegetation. We'll land there, establish a beachhead, and expand outward. The humans won't know what hit them." When the tactical display zoomed in on a particular farm owned by someone named Jack Lawson, Vornak's facial tentacles curled into what his species considered a confident smile. "Perfect. Send down the first wave. I want boots on the ground in that field within the hour." As the invasion ships began their descent, Vornak added an entry to his personal log. "Day 1 of the Earth conquest. This should be the easiest victory in Galactic Federation history. These humans don't even have proper energy weapons. Just wait until High Command hears how I conquered a planet full of farmers." Little did Commander Vornak know, he'd just made 3 critical mistakes. First, he'd ignored first contact protocols. Second, he'd dismissed all the warning stories about Earth. And third, most catastrophically of all, he'd chosen to land on Jack Lawson's prize-winning cornfield. The invasion of Earth was about to become the biggest military blunder since the Zeptonian Empire tried to invade a planet of sentient rubber bands. But at least the Zeptonians had an excuse. They didn't know the rubber bands could think. Vornak? He was about to learn the hard way that humans, especially farmers, were anything but primitive. And Jack Lawson, he really didn't like aliens messing with his corn. The massive landing ships descended through Earth's atmosphere, their advanced stealth systems completely failing to hide them from Jack Lawson's Mark I eyeballs. The 60-year-old farmer stood on his porch, coffee mug in one hand, shotgun in the other, watching the ships get bigger and bigger. "Helen," he called out to his wife, "get the good camera. Looks like we got ourselves some uninvited visitors." The ships touched down right in the middle of his prize-winning cornfield. Morgan's face turned a shade of red that would have made a tomato jealous. "Well now," he muttered, setting down his coffee mug. "That's just plain rude." But Commander Vornak's voice boomed through external speakers. "Primitive humans, we have come to claim your world. Surrender now and... What is that approaching our ship?" Through the view screen, Vornak watched as a single human male walked toward them, carrying what their weapons officer identified as a primitive projectile weapon. But what confused the alien commander most was the human's complete lack of fear. In fact, the human looked annoyed. "Get your flying dumpster off my corn," Morgan shouted, his voice carrying surprising authority for a being so small. "You're crushing my best field." Vornak turned to his bridge crew. "Is this some sort of diplomatic representative?" Scanning Science Officer Nirix reported. "He appears to be just a farmer." Vornak's facial tentacles twitched in disbelief. "A farmer? They sent a farmer to meet us?" He activated the external speakers again. "Foolish human. We are the most advanced species in this sector. Your primitive vegetation is meaningless to us." Morgan spat on the ground. "Listen here, you overgrown squid. I got 3 things to say. First, them's fighting words about my corn. Second, your parking job is terrible. And third, you got exactly 10 seconds to move your ship before I get mad." The bridge crew burst into their species version of laughter. Vornak deployed the intimidation ramp, complete with smoke effects and ominous lighting. "Perhaps a demonstration of our power is in order." The ship's main cannon powered up, targeting a nearby empty field. A beam of pure energy shot out, turning the soil to glass. "Behold our technological superiority." Morgan looked at the glassed field, then back at the ship. "You know what that was? That was littering. Now I got to clean that up." He pulled out his phone and pressed speed dial. "Hey, Beatrice. Yeah, them aliens everyone's been talking about on the news just landed in my cornfield. Bring your combine harvester, the red one." Vornak was getting frustrated. This wasn't how conquests usually went. "Surrender or be destroyed, human." "Name's Jack Lawson," the farmer replied, shouldering his shotgun. "And you're standing between me and my morning routine. I got chickens to feed, cows to milk, and now a bunch of alien trespassers to deal with. So last warning, move your ship." Vornak had had enough. He ordered his personal guard to deploy, 20 heavily armed troops marching down the ramp in perfect formation. Their plasma rifles hummed with deadly energy. Morgan watched them approach, then looked at his watch. "Right on time," he said, just as the distinctive rumble of machinery filled the air. Over the hill came the most terrifying sight the alien troops had ever seen. A line of massive red combines, tractors, and various other farm equipment, all driven by very angry-looking farmers. Leading the charge was Linda Carter in her vintage combine harvester, which she'd painted with flame decals for special occasions. "What are those primitive vehicles?" Vornak demanded, so Nirix's voice trembled. "According to my scans, they're harvesting machines." "Buh," and Vornak snapped, and they're coming right for us. The alien troops, trained for modern warfare against advanced civilizations, had no protocol for dealing with a charging line of farm equipment. They opened fire, their plasma bolts splashing harmlessly against the reinforced steel of machines built to work 14 hours a day in the hot Kansas sun. Morgan calmly walked back to his porch, picked up his coffee mug, and took a sip. "Told you to move your ship," he called out to the increasingly panicked aliens. What followed was pure chaos. Beatrice's combine harvester caught 2 alien troops in its reel, spinning them around like Thursday's laundry before depositing them in a confused heap. Hank Wheeler used his truck's front loader to scoop up 3 more and dump them in his manure spreader. Vornak watched in horror from his command bridge as his elite troops were routed by what his database identified as primitive agricultural equipment. The final straw came when Morgan's prize-winning bull, Buster, broke through his fence and decided the ship's shiny landing gear looked like something that needed headbutting. "Retreat!" Vornak screamed into the comm system. "Back to the ship!" As the alien troops scrambled back up their dramatic entrance ramp, pursued by angry farmers in various large machines, Jack Lawson stood on his porch, finishing his coffee. "Helen," he called out, "better make extra biscuits for breakfast. Something tells me we're going to have ourselves an interesting day." Science Officer Zirella paced the analysis chamber of the Devastator, her sensory appendages twitching with frustration as she reviewed the data from their first encounter. Holograms flickered around her, displaying scenes from the disastrous landing attempt. "This makes no logical sense," she muttered, bringing up a replay of Linda Carter's combine harvester throwing alien soldiers around like confetti at a parade. "Their technology is primitive, their weapons are basic, and yet..." Commander Vornak burst into the chamber, all 4 arms gesturing wildly. "Well, give me something I can use against these savages. They made us look like amateurs down there." Zirella adjusted her neural enhancer. "Sir, I've completed my initial analysis. These humans, particularly this Jack Lawson, they're different. They appear to have an unprecedented ability to weaponize anything." "Explain," Vornak demanded, his facial tentacles still slightly singed from when Buster the Bull had caused a short circuit in the landing gear. "Take this device." Zirella projected an image of a pitchfork. "It's designed for moving plant matter and waste material, but in human hands, it becomes a surprisingly effective anti-personnel weapon. And this," she showed a grain auger. "They've somehow modified it to launch projectiles at our troops with remarkable accuracy. Just shoot the machines." Vornak slammed his secondary fists on the analysis table. "Our weapons can vaporize tanks." "About that." So Zirella brought up another replay. "Watch what happened when Squad 7 targeted the human machines." The hologram showed alien plasma bolts splashing harmlessly off Hank Wheeler's tractor. The elderly mechanic had stuck his head out the window and shouted, "Ha! I've seen worse from a summer hailstorm." "Impossible." Vornak's mandibles clicked rapidly in agitation. "What are these machines made of?" "Sir, they're made of regular metal, but these farmers, they maintain their equipment to withstand incredible stress. They've basically been preparing for war without knowing it. Every broken part replaced, every weak spot reinforced, years of modifications and improvements." Before Zirella could finish, the ship's alarm blared. On the main screen, Jack Lawson appeared to be approaching the grounded invasion force again, but this time he brought what the database identified as a wood chipper. "He wouldn't," Vornak whispered. "Morgan would." The elderly farmer had attached rocket boosters, courtesy of old Bob's mysterious workshop, to the wood chipper, and was now driving it via remote control toward the alien position. Behind it, a line of farmers had set up lawn chairs and were eating popcorn while taking bets on how many alien troops it would catch. "Deploy the shock troops," Vornak screamed into his communicator. "Use standard subjugation pattern Delta." The ship's elite shock troops emerged, their battle suits crackling with electrical energy. They moved in perfect formation, just as they had on 100 other worlds. Standard subjugation tactics had never failed before. They failed now. Morgan had anticipated their movement pattern. It was the same way his grandson's toy soldiers walked, and had prepared accordingly. The ground beneath the shock troops, which appeared to be normal dirt, was actually covering a complex series of irrigation pipes. With one press of a button, the entire field turned into a mud pit. So Zirella's voice trembled as she watched the events unfold. "The humans, they're laughing at us." Indeed, the farmers had broken into applause as the mighty alien shock troops slipped and slipped and slid in the mud like drunken ice skaters. Linda Carter's grandchildren were recording it all on their phones. But Morgan wasn't done. He'd modified his fertilizer spreader to shoot chicken feed into the air, which attracted every bird within a 5-mile radius. The alien troops, already struggling with Earth's gravity and the mud, now had to deal with hundreds of angry chickens and geese diving at their helmets. "Pull them back," Vornak ordered, watching in horror as a particularly aggressive goose chased his best commander across the field. "Pull them all back." So Zirella's voice was barely a whisper now. "I think I understand why other species warned us about Earth. These humans, they don't think like we do. They take simple tools and make them into weapons. They turn farming equipment into war machines." She was interrupted by a new alarm. Morgan had brought out something the database identified as a pressure washer. "That's just a water sprayer," Vornak said dismissively. "What harm could it possibly?" The pressure washer, modified by old Bob to use his special extra-strength cleaning solution, cut through the alien troops' armor like butter. The farmers cheered as the mighty invasion force retreated. Some running, some slipping in the mud, all of them being chased by a combination of birds, farming equipment, and jets of pressurized water. "Full retreat," Vornak bellowed. "Back to the ships." As the alien forces scrambled back to their vessels, Zirella updated her analysis conclusion. Human farmers represent Class 10 threat level. Their ability to improvise weapons from agricultural equipment exceeds all known parameters. Standard subjugation tactics, completely ineffective. Recommended course of action, immediate withdrawal and reevaluation of invasion strategy. Jack Lawson stood in his field, pressure washer in hand, watching the alien ships lift off. Next to him, Linda Carter was using her tablet to post videos of the battle on social media. "You think they'll be back?" she asked. Morgan looked at his muddied field, the scattered alien equipment, and the still circling birds. "Oh, probably. Folks that stupid usually need more than one lesson." He checked his watch. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to milk the cows. But keep that combine warmed up, Beatrice. Something tells me we ain't seen the last of these fellows." Above them, Commander Vornak's ship retreated to a safe distance, its once gleaming hull now covered in mud, chicken feathers, and what appeared to be manure. The mighty alien invasion force had just learned a crucial lesson. Never underestimate a farmer protecting their land, especially not Jack Lawson. Fleet Admiral Grand Marshal Kalis's arrival in Earth's orbit was marked by the appearance of his flagship, a vessel so massive it briefly caused an eclipse over 3 states. His first act upon arrival was to summon Commander Vornak for an explanation of the situation. His second act was to wonder why his supposedly elite commander was covered in feathers and what appeared to be cow manure. "Let me understand this correctly," Grand Marshal Kalis rumbled, his ceremonial armor gleaming under the command deck's lights. "You, commander of the 7th Invasion Fleet, were driven off by a group of humans who grow plants for a living." Vornak's facial tentacles drooped in shame. "Sir, you don't understand. These farmers, they're not like anything we've encountered before. They turned our own gravity generators against us by creating mud pits. They weaponized their feathered livestock." Silenced, Grand Marshal Kalis's roar shook the command deck. "I will show you how a real invasion is conducted. Deploy the planet breaker weapons. Launch the doom spheres. Release the atomic reconstructors." Down on Earth, Jack Lawson was hosting an emergency meeting in his barn. The local news had reported a second large alien fleet in orbit, and Morgan wasn't about to be caught unprepared. "All right, folks," he addressed the gathered crowd of farmers, his voice echoing off the barn's wooden walls. "Looks like them space squids brought their boss. Time to show them how we handle things in Kansas." Linda Carter raised her hand. "I've modified my combine's reel with some of old Bob's rocket boosters. Figure we can make it spin fast enough to send their troops into next Tuesday." Hank Wheeler wheeled out his latest creation. "And I've turned 3 tractors into what I like to call the welcome wagon. Got electromagnets strong enough to yank their fancy armor right off their backs." The barn doors burst open as Diana Brooks, who ran the local dairy farm, rushed in. "They're coming. Hundreds of ships heading straight for us." Morgan nodded calmly. "Right then. Time to put our plans into action. Betty, you and your quilting circle got those nets ready." Nancy Green, 78 years young, patted a pile of seemingly innocent quilts. "Reinforced with steel cable, just like you asked. One pull of this string, and they'll wrap up those aliens tighter than my Christmas presents." The sky darkened as Grand Marshal Kalis's fleet descended. Massive weapons platforms emerged from the ships, their energy readings off the scale. The fleet admiral's voice boomed across the landscape. "Primitive humans, behold the might of the Galactic Federation's most advanced weapons. Surrender now, or be." Why are they moving their equipment into position? Morgan's improvised militia had sprung into action with the practiced efficiency of people who regularly had to beat approaching tornadoes to shelter. Tractors formed a defensive line, combines moved to the flanks, and pickup trucks loaded with mysterious equipment took up strategic positions. "Send in the doom spheres," Grand Marshal Kalis commanded. Massive black orbs descended from the ships, crackling with energy. They touched down in Morgan's field, ready to unleash devastation. "Now!" Helen Morgan called out to his wife. Helen Lawson, who'd been quietly watching from her rocking chair on the porch, pressed a button. The irrigation systems she'd modified burst into life. But instead of water, they sprayed her special blend of fertilizer directly onto the doom spheres. The supposedly indestructible weapons began to dissolve. "What? What?" Grand Marshal Kalis's voice cracked with disbelief. "Those are made from indestructible space alloys." "Maybe," Helen called back, "but nothing stands up to my triple-strength fertilizer mix. Been dissolving tractor rust with that stuff for 40 years. The alien forces charged forward, only to face an organized resistance that would have made any military strategist proud. Beatrice's supercharged combine led the charge, its spinning reel creating a vortex that sucked up alien troops and equipment alike. Old Bob's magnetized tractors pulled weapons right out of alien hands, while Betty's quilting circle launched their steel cable nets with deadly accuracy. "Launch the atomic reconstructors," Grand Marshal Kalis ordered in desperation. The devices appeared in the sky, ready to rearrange matter itself. But they hadn't counted on Eddie Burns's modified grain silo fans. The massive industrial blowers, powered by Old Bob's mysterious energy source, created a windstorm that sent the devices tumbling through the air like leaves in autumn. Morgan coordinated the defense from his front porch, using nothing more sophisticated than a handheld radio and his grandson's drone for surveillance. "Sarah, bring your dairy cows around from the left. Them aliens ain't used to dodging half-ton animals." A herd of very annoyed Holstein cows led by Diana Brooks on horseback scattered another alien formation. One particularly bold cow headbutted an alien tank, leaving a dent in the shape of her horns. Grand Marshal Kalis watched in horror as his advanced invasion force was systematically dismantled by what his database still insisted was primitive agricultural equipment. The farmers had turned their entire community into a synchronized defense machine, using their intimate knowledge of the land and their equipment to devastating effect. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "we're losing ground. Their defensive line is too coordinated, and our troops can't adapt to their unconventional tactics." "Unconventional?" Grand Marshal Kalis bellowed. "They're fighting us with farm equipment." "Very effectively, sir," the officer added, ducking as another alien soldier flew past the view screen, caught in the vortex of Beatrice's combine. Morgan's voice crackled over their communication channels. "Had enough yet? 'Cause we got plenty more where that came from. Old Bob's just finished his new invention, and my wife's got a fresh batch of that fertilizer brewing." Grand Marshal Kalis looked at his mighty fleet, now thoroughly humiliated by a group of farmers. His advanced weapons were either dissolved, magnetically captured, or being used as chicken perches. His elite troops were running from cows, and somewhere in the distance, he could hear Nancy Green shouting, "Got another one in my quilt trap." The fleet admiral made a decision that would later require significant explanation to high command. "Fall back," he ordered. "Fall back immediately." As the alien fleet retreated, Morgan turned to his gathered neighbors. "Well, folks, reckon we should clean up this mess and get back to work. Crops won't harvest themselves." He paused, though I bet Old Bob could probably invent something for that, too. The morning sun rose over Kansas to find the greatest space armada in galactic history facing off against what appeared to be a county fair gone militant. Fleet Admiral Grand Marshal Kaelis, Commander Vornak, and Science Officer Zirella stood on their command bridge, watching the humans make their final preparations. "They can't possibly withstand a full assault," Grand Marshal Kaelis declared, though his tentacles twisted nervously. "Deploy everything." Down below, Jack Lawson sat in his favorite rocking chair, sipping coffee and watching the alien ships darken the sky. "Helen, better bring out the special equipment." Helen emerged from their barn, driving what used to be a simple riding lawn mower. Now, thanks to Old Bob's modifications, it sported a reinforced cow catcher on the front, a converted grain auger that shot ball bearings at high speed, and a rooftop bubble shield made from Helen's old greenhouse panels. "Positions, everyone," Morgan called out over his radio. "Remember the plan, and somebody wake up Buster. That bull's got a score to settle." The alien assault began with a barrage of energy weapons that lit up the morning sky like fireworks. But the farmers were ready. Linda Carter's grandchildren had spent the night setting up hundreds of mirrors salvaged from the local recycling center. The energy beams bounced off them in a dazzling display, several hitting the alien ships and leaving interesting new paint jobs. "Impossible," Grand Marshal Kaelis howled. "Deploy the ground forces." Thousands of alien troops poured from their ships, only to face what could only be described as weaponized agriculture. Diana Brooks led the first counterattack. her dairy cows now wearing makeshift armor made from old tractor parts. Behind her, Nancy Green's quilting circle had set up a remarkable kill zone using their reinforced steel cable nets, which they launched with modified tennis ball machines. Sector 3 under heavy fire, came a call over the radio. Roger that, Morgan responded. Tommy, show them your new invention. Eddie Burns grinned and activated what he called his crop duster special. His rebuilt crop duster didn't spray pesticides anymore. Instead, it released clouds of superfine grain dust. The alien troops, not understanding the explosive properties of grain dust in enclosed spaces, activated their energy shields. The resulting static electricity ignited the dust, creating a series of spectacular but mostly harmless explosions that sent the aliens running and filled the air with the smell of toasted wheat. My turn, old Bob called out. His latest creation, a combine harvester he merged with 3 tractors and what might have been parts from the first alien landing, roared to life. He painted it bright purple because, as he said, if we're going to fight aliens, might as well do it with style. The massive machine charged into the alien ranks, its traditional harvesting reel replaced with what appeared to be a giant mechanical hand. It plucked up alien soldiers and gently, but firmly, deposited them in its grain hopper, which had been converted into a makeshift holding pen lined with hay bales. Grand Marshal Kalis watched in horror as his troops were systematically rounded up by farming equipment. Release the quantum tanks. The massive hovering vehicles appeared, their weapons charging up with reality-bending energy. Morgan just smiled and picked up his radio again. Helen, honey, time for your special recipe. Helen Lawson had spent 50 years keeping her farm running through tornadoes, droughts, and every pest known to Kansas. Her homemade fertilizer mix was legendary for its ability to dissolve almost anything. Now loaded into modified pressure washers mounted on pickup trucks, it proved equally effective against alien armor. The quantum tanks never stood a chance. Their advanced alloys might have been able to withstand nuclear weapons, but they weren't prepared for Helen's special blend. Within minutes, they looked like modern art sculptures. The pigs are loose, someone shouted, and indeed, the Thompson family's prize-winning hogs had joined the battle. The massive animals, surprisingly agile, wreaked havoc among the alien formations. One particularly large sow took a liking to an alien commander's ceremonial cape and refused to let go. In orbit, Zarella was frantically updating her tactical analysis. Sir, they're using every aspect of their agricultural expertise against us. The animals are trained, the machines are modified, even their plant chemicals are weaponized. This isn't a farm, it's a fortress. Commander Vornak, still traumatized from his first encounter with Buster. The bull watched as the massive animal led a charge against their left flank, so he whispered to Grand Marshal Kalis, I think we should consider a strategic withdrawal. Never. Grand Marshal Kalis activated the fleet's most powerful weapon, the Planet Cracker. Let's see them farm their way out of this. The massive weapon began charging, its energy readings off the scale. Jack Lawson looked up at it, took another sip of his coffee, and pressed a button on his radio. Now, kids. Beatrice's grandchildren, who had spent the morning setting up what looked like a massive game of marbles across the battlefield, activated their secret weapon. Hundreds of old Bob's magnetic devices switched on simultaneously. The resulting electromagnetic pulse wasn't particularly powerful, but it didn't need to be. It just needed to confuse the Planet Cracker's targeting system for a few seconds. The massive weapon fired directly into Grand Marshal Kalis's own command ship. As the flagship systems went haywire, chaos erupted among the alien fleet. Ships collided with each other, trying to avoid the malfunctioning planet cracker. Ground troops fled in panic as Buster and his bovine brigade charged through their ranks. Old Bob's purple mega harvester continued scooping up soldiers, now accompanied by Sarah's cows, playing what looked suspiciously like soccer with abandoned alien helmets. "This is madness," Grand Marshal Kayla screamed, watching as Nancy Green, armed with nothing but a pitchfork and a stern expression, faced down and captured an entire squad of elite troops. "They're just farmers. Correction," Zirella interjected, ducking as another alien soldier flew past, caught in the vortex of Beatrice's combat combine. "They're humans who farm. I don't think we properly appreciated the difference." Morgan stood up from his rocking chair, checked his watch, and picked up his radio one last time. "Been fun, folks, but it's almost dinner time. Helen has made her famous pot roast, and I don't like to keep her waiting. So here's the deal. You all can leave now, nice and peaceful-like, or we can show you what else we've got hiding in our barns." The alien leaders looked at their fleet, now mostly covered in fertilizer burns, magnetic dents, and hoof prints. They looked at their troops, many of whom were sitting peacefully in old Bob's grain hopper, sharing sandwiches with their captors. They looked at Buster, the bull who had acquired a collection of alien medals and was wearing them proudly. "Retreat," Grand Marshal Kalis finally ordered, his voice barely a whisper. "Full retreat." As the alien fleet fled Earth's atmosphere, Jack Lawson returned to his porch and sat back in his rocking chair. Around him, his neighbors were already starting to clean up, tractors now returning to their usual farming duties. "Interesting morning," Helen said, bringing him a fresh cup of coffee. Morgan nodded. "Sure was, though someone's going to have to explain to Buster that he can't keep those medals. They clash with his show ribbons." Before the Galactic Federation's High Council, Fleet Admiral Grand Marshal Kalis stood alongside Commander Vornak and Science Officer Zerella, their tentacles drooping in embarrassment as they delivered their report. "You mean to tell me," the Grand Chancellor's voice boomed through the chamber, "that our most advanced invasion fleet was defeated by primitive agricultural workers?" "With respect, Your Excellency," Zirella stepped forward, her sensors still showing traces of grain dust. "I would strike the word primitive from our database regarding humans. They turned everyday farming equipment into anti-spacecraft weapons. Their social bonds and improvisation skills are unprecedented, and their livestock," Vornak added, flinching at the memory. "That bull, Buster, he took down 3 hover tanks by himself." Back on Earth, Jack Lawson's farm had returned to its normal routine. The only signs of the recent battle were a few scorch marks in the cornfield, and Buster's new habit of wearing his collection of stolen alien medals during county fairs. "Pass the potatoes, would you, Helen?" Morgan asked during dinner. "By the way, what did you do with all that alien technology old Bob couldn't use?" Helen smiled, wiping her hands on her apron. "Melted most of it down, made some nice wind chimes for the garden, and that fancy alien commander's chair. Reupholstered it, makes a lovely addition to the living room. At the neighboring farm, Linda Carter had kept one of the alien energy cores. She'd hooked it up to her chicken coop. Eggs production is up 300%, she bragged at the weekly farmer's market, though they do glow a little in the dark. Old Bob had turned his purple mega harvester back into a regular combine, mostly. Kept a few modifications, he explained to visitors. Never know when they might come in handy. In orbit around Earth, Zerella personally supervised the placement of the warning beacon. Its message broadcast in over 1,000 galactic languages was simple. "Notice this planetary system protected by farmers with mechanical aptitude and too much spare time. Approach at own risk. P.S. They have a bull named Buster. The science officer added one final entry to her report before leaving Earth's solar system. Conclusion. Human agricultural workers represent the most formidable defensive force encountered in galactic history. Their ability to repurpose simple tools into devastating weapons, combined with their intimate knowledge of their land and unwavering determination to protect it, makes them nearly invincible on their home territory. Special note regarding Jack Lawson's farm designation changed from potential conquest site to absolute no landing zone. Additional warning. His wife's fertilizer formula has been classified as a substance of mass destruction. Years later, other alien species would ask about the strange warning beacon and its oddly specific message about a bull. The Galactic Federation's response was always the same. Trust us, just grow your own food, your own. As for Jack Lawson, he still sits on his porch most mornings, drinking coffee and watching the sun rise. The shotgun rests nearby, and old Bob's upgraded security system keeps an eye on the skies. Sometimes, on clear nights, he can see the warning beacon twinkling among the stars. "You think they'll ever come back?" Helen asked one evening. Morgan smiled, watching Buster parade around the field with his alien medals glinting in the sunset. "Nah, reckon they learned their lesson. Besides," he patted the arm of his rocking chair, which had suspiciously advanced gravitational stabilizers built into it. "If they do, we'll be ready. After all, you can invade a planet, conquer nations, and dominate species across the galaxy, but you don't mess with a farmer's prize-winning corn. Some lessons you only need to learn once,